Welcome to Chapter 5 on contraception. So this chapter is all about planning and preventing pregnancy, and in many cases also preventing STIs. So let's define contraception. Contraception is the process of preventing sperm cells from fertilizing an ovum. And so conception occurs at the moment the egg and sperm join in the fallopian tubes, and pregnancy is when the fertilized egg actually implants in the uterus. So studies show that most college students are not using contraception, and those who do actually use it pretty inconsistently. So even if you're not sexually active now, it is important to have a plan for contraception if and when you do become active. Okay, so we'll start with some historical perspectives. Prior to the 1930s, there was something called the Comstock Act, and it was a bill stating that contraception information and device sales and distribution use were illegal. It was named after Anthony Comstock, who considered contraception obscene and indecent. And so the bill also made it illegal to mention STIs in print whatsoever. People that were in the contraception manufacturing business found loopholes to kind of get around the Comstock Act by not referring to condoms as condoms, but instead rubbers or prophylactics, or they had a bunch of other terms that people knew meant condoms in actuality. Doctors and nurses weren't allowed to discuss contraception with patients at all, and anyone who violated this Comstock Act was arrested and imprisoned. So in the early 1900s and prior, the rhythm method was the primary form of preventing pregnancy, but doctors often got it wrong and told people to have sex when they were most fertile. So the rhythm method is basically knowing when you're ovulating and then abstaining from sex during that time. But the doctors incorrectly assumed that all women had the same length of periods, being 28 days, and they would tell them the wrong days to abstain from sex, and made all kinds of mistakes like that. So it wasn't actually effective in preventing pregnancy. So Margaret Sanger was single-handedly responsible for getting rid of this Comstock Act and making contraception available. She's actually the person that coined the phrase birth control. She was a nurse, she had 3 kids, and she moved to New York City at the age of 30 and began writing articles about women's rights to protect themselves during sex and have sex without worrying about pregnancy. So she opened the first birth control clinic, which was actually raided by police and closed after just 2 weeks. And for that, Sanger spent 30 days in jail. But this jail time and this raid actually got her a ton of publicity and gained her tons of support. And then she started opening up a bunch of clinics. And those clinics were eventually named Planned Parenthood. So she's the original founder of Planned Parenthood. She's a pretty controversial figure. She said some things that many people consider racist, and she's been accused of being interested in eugenics and things like that. But we're not going to talk about that too much here. Instead, we'll just kind of get the brief overview of her history in terms of her relationship with Planned Parenthood.
Margaret Sanger was the founder of the American reproductive rights movement.
Margaret Sanger was born Margaret Higgins on September 14, 1879, in Corning, New York. She came from a very large Roman Catholic family, having 11 siblings. After attending college, she studied to become a nurse.
Margaret Sanger was influenced by the experiences she had as a visiting nurse, where she met so many immigrant working mothers who were deeply impacted by unwanted pregnancies and forced, often botched miscarriages.
Most people attribute Sanger's interest in birth control to seeing what her mother went through. She had a total of 18 pregnancies. Her mother ultimately died at age 40 of tuberculosis.
Margaret married William Sanger in 1902 and moved to Greenwich Village, New York City a few years later. There she began her life's work advocating for birth control while also raising a family of 3 children.
Margaret Sanger came of age during the period of the Comstock Act. This was a statute that made it illegal to discuss, distribute materials, or provide women with anything related to birth control or contraception.
Sanger thought that the best way to change the law was to break the law. She launched the Woman Rebel, which promoted birth control, collecting the attention of the U.S. government, which immediately indicted her for publishing obscene materials. Instead of risking 20 years in prison, she flew the country and went into exile in England.
Sanger spent 1 year in England and returned to the United States in 1915 when the charges against her were dropped. A year later, she opened America's first birth control clinic in Brooklyn.
She called the press for interviews in which she announced the clinic, telling them it would be secret, essentially inviting police to come by. More than 400 women from the neighborhood came to that clinic. A few days later, the clinic was closed and Sanger and her colleagues were arrested. However, the clinic received coverage in all of the papers, and this was in the middle of World War I.
Sanger also went on to start a research institute dedicated to birth control, the first scientific journal dedicated to birth control, and a large advocacy organization. All of these pieces came together in 1942 to become what's now known as Planned Parenthood.
Sanger was deeply committed to finding a pill to help women control unwanted pregnancies.
During the 1950s, she brought together a coalition of philanthropists, scientists, and physicians to ultimately bring about the first birth control pill, which would be known as a NuvaRing.
After more than a half-century leading the birth control fight, Sanger lived to see her main goals realized: the invention and FDA approval of a contraceptive pill in 1960, and the repeal of the Comstock Law by the Supreme Court in 1965. She died a year later on September 6, 1966.
Margaret Sanger wrote that a woman's body belongs to herself alone. It does not belong to the United States of America or any other government on the face of the earth. Sanger fought all her life to make this the case, and women today owe Sanger a great debt of gratitude for fighting this fight for herself and for generations to come.
Okay, so there are a ton of different types of contraceptives out there. And so in choosing a method, you have to educate yourself on the different types, how effective they are, and how to use them. 53% of unplanned pregnancies actually occur in couples that are using contraceptives. So sometimes people just don't use them correctly, and this is ultimately what causes them to be ineffective. So the method that you choose to use can be an individual or a shared decision. If you're in an intimate relationship, you should probably find a method that's effective and comfortable for both of you. And studies actually show that couples that talk about contraception are more consistent in using it. So if you're having sex with different people, then you just need to choose the method that is best for yourself, and that's a decision you'd make by yourself. So there are different methods available for different sexual lifestyles. So you would want to consider the questions on the slide here when choosing a type of contraception. For example, monogamous sex where both people are STD free. In that situation, then maybe you would just use birth control and not a type of contraception that prevents STIs because you're monogamous and you're not sleeping with anyone else and you've been tested and there's no STIs involved, so it wouldn't be necessary then to worry about STIs, hopefully. Okay, so let's look at the slide here and go over some of these lifestyle considerations. Am I currently engaging in sexual activities that involve any risk of pregnancy or transmission of STIs? Am I confident that I am in a one-on-one exclusive relationship in which both of us are free of STIs? How often do I engage in potentially risky sexual activities? Do I have more than one sexual partner? How seriously would an accidental pregnancy disrupt my life? Will the method I choose conflict with my religious beliefs? Do I need to be in charge of contraception, or can I trust my partner to take care of it? And do I feel comfortable overall with this method? There's a bunch of myths and unreliable methods that have been talked about throughout history, such as douching, doing a Coca-Cola douche, standing up during intercourse as a way to prevent pregnancy, using plastic wrap on the penis in lieu of like a condom, using toothpaste as spermicide, or only having sex with virgins was thought of as a way to prevent pregnancy for a long time. So some people still actually believe that these contraception myths are true, and hopefully by the end of this lecture, you're not one of them. Okay, so for lecture activity number 1, I would like for you to tell me a myth that you have heard about contraception. Maybe someone else said it, or you used to believe it when you were younger. Or if you can't think of any myths, then tell me a question you have about contraception. And maybe it's just something you're not sure if it's a myth, or it's something that you've heard, but you don't know if there's any evidence to back it up. Or maybe it's just a question you have in general about contraception. So just give me a one-sentence example of a myth you've heard or a question you have about contraception for lecture activity 1. So the first method of contraception or preventing pregnancy that we're going to talk about is selective abstinence. And so selective abstinence is choosing to engage in or avoid certain sexual behaviors on the basis of their risk of STIs or pregnancy. So abstinence does not mean no sexual activity. It means avoiding activities like intercourse, anal, or oral sex. However, there is celibacy, and celibacy means engaging in no sexual activities whatsoever. However, there's something called outer course, which is a form of abstinence in which a couple chooses to engage only in sexual behaviors that are unlikely to result in pregnancy or infection, and to avoid all others, such as vaginal or anal intercourse and oral sex. So outer course behaviors include holding hands, kissing, intimate touching, exploring each other's bodies, touching genitals with hands, masturbation, or mutual masturbation. And with outer course, orgasms can still occur. So semen and vaginal fluids don't touch any mucous membranes or break in each other's skin, and there's no ejaculation near the vaginal opening, which makes it impossible to get pregnant or pass STIs. And then people who engage in selective abstinence report having satisfaction, especially since there's no risk involved. However, in the heat of passion, this method can be a hard one to maintain. So in certain religious communities, celibacy is a practice common among clergy, and some people have questions about whether or not that's appropriate or acceptable. So we're going to watch a quick clip that talks about celibacy for priests.
According to the Vatican's Secretary of State, priest celibacy is an open question for the Catholic Church, and it should be. Family values and passing along belief in God to the next generation are a large part of Catholic life. Plus, marriage is one of the 7 sacraments. So why does the Church require its priests to miss out on those elements of religious life? Well, first off, it doesn't always require that. Celibacy is not a revealed truth passed down from God. It's a church discipline, and as such, there are some exceptions to the rule. In fact, about 100 Catholic priests in the U.S. today are married. These priests were married Episcopal and Lutheran ministers who later converted to Catholicism. They were reordained as Catholic priests and allowed to keep their marriage vows, wives, families, etc. And some Eastern Catholic churches who are self-governing but considered Catholic by the Vatican have always allowed sections of their priesthood to marry. So, celibacy is not an absolute requirement for doing the job of a priest. Plus, celibacy wasn't a part of Catholicism early on. It only became an official part of the Church in 1075 CE. It was instituted to stem corruption and to put an end to the practice of priests leaving church property to their widows and children. So, in light of all this, why doesn't the Church open up marriage to the entire priesthood? Well, according to current Catholic teachings, they see celibacy as a gift that God bestows on those who are called to the priesthood. A gift that allows priests to devote themselves to their parishioners, keeping them as the main priority in their hearts and minds, not a secondary priority below their wives and kids, which you can argue is a practical benefit of celibacy. There are also financial benefits of celibacy. Taking on more dependents raises a lot of questions. Can every diocese afford to take care of entire families? Would they carry insurance for everyone or just the priests? Would they pay for higher education? Do they take on the debts or liabilities of their new dependents, etc., etc.? And there are a few moral Pandora's boxy type questions that go with priests marrying. How do you handle the inevitable divorce or separation? Could they marry non-Catholics? Is it ethical for a priest to take their wife's or child's confession? What about the child's or widow's inheritance or adoption? Is that available to priests? There are a ton of questions, and we didn't even mention gay rights, birth control, or any of the other hot button issues for the Catholic Church. It has been recently reported that the Pope called celibacy a problem. He also said there are solutions and I will find them. The trouble is, as problems go, this one is very complicated, so solutions may not come quickly. To see our episode on another slow-moving institution, the Boy Scouts of America, and their current issues with gay rights, click here now. Right now, 70% of the chartered scouting units are sponsored by faith-based organizations, which, as we know, are not exactly hubs of open-mindedness and change. Or click the other box to see our video on how the US government officially recognizes religions. New videos 5 days a week. Please subscribe.
So a male condom is a thin sheath of latex or rubber, polyurethane, which is plastic, or animal tissue that is placed over an erect penis prior to intercourse. And there are a lot of varieties of condoms. There's lubricated or not, spermicide or not, plain or reservoir tips, ultra thin, extra strength, colored, rib, textured, snugger, flavored, and glow, just to name a few. So male condoms are barrier methods that prevent sperm from entering the woman and mucous membranes from touching and exchanging fluids. So it's extremely effective in preventing conception and STIs. China actually has 9,000 vending machines that dispense free condoms, just as a fun fact. And another fun fact, the Catholic Church has always forbidden the use of condoms because it prevents procreation. So in terms of choosing a condom, you want to avoid animal skin condoms like lamb skin. They are porous, and so viruses can actually pass through them. You want to use lubricated non-spermicidal condoms. Lubrication prevents tearing of the condom, and spermicide can actually irritate the mucous membranes, which increases the possibility of STIs. And so condoms have the reservoir tip on the top, and this allows room for semen to gather, and it decreases the likelihood of the condom tearing. And you never want to use expired condoms. So they are extremely effective if they are used correctly. Then the failure rate is actually only 0.028%. But when used incorrectly, the failure rate is up to 18%, so much higher. And some of the common mistakes when it comes to using condom is failing to use a condom every time, putting the condom on too late, like after pre-ejaculate, putting the condom on wrong, most commonly not leaving space at the tip and rolling down only halfway. Withdrawing after erection has subsided and the condom slips off, allowing the semen to enter into the vagina. Not holding the condom at the base when withdrawing. Using old or damaged condoms. Using the same condom more than once. Inadequate lubrication during intercourse, which as we said can cause them to tear. Using Vaseline, lotion, or baby oil as a lubricant. It actually reacts with the latex. And then storing them incorrectly, like putting them in your wallet or your glove compartment or direct sunlight, will damage the effectiveness and make them more likely to tear. Studies actually show that 30% of men and 41% of women report that someone has tried to talk them out of using condoms. Men report that condoms reduce sensitivity, interfere with their erection, interrupts the mood, and makes them seem less macho. So studies found that these strategies can help you convince your partner to use a condom. You can explain STIs to them, you can refuse sex, you can say you're ovulating, and amongst those, men rated saying you're ovulating as the most effective way to get them to use a condom, and women said that refusing sex was the most effective way to get them to use a condom. So Google searches for how to use a condom are amongst the top 3 most commonly searched sentences on Google. So we're going to watch a video on how to use a condom and how to properly put it on.
Condoms are essential for safer sex. They're the only form of contraception that offers protection against pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. Most condoms are made from natural rubber latex. They're shaped to go over the erect penis with a little teat or reservoir at the end. They're usually pre-lubricated to help ease it on and reduce friction and the chances of it breaking. Before you use a condom, double check the use-by date. If it's in date, you're ready to go. All you need to do is remove it from the foil packaging, taking care not to rip it with your nails or jewellery. Next, double check it's not inside out. This is what it should look like when it's the right way around, with the teat pointing upwards and the outside ready to roll down. If you start putting a condom on inside out, turning it around and starting again means that any pre-ejaculate that was on the inside is now on the outside. So discard that condom and get a new one. Next, pinch the end of the condom to remove any air. Pop it on the end of the erect penis and, still holding the teat, roll the condom down to the bottom of the penis. Make sure it rolls right down and make sure there are no air bubbles. After sex, make sure you hold the base of the condom as you withdraw from your partner. Then gently pull the condom off before wrapping it in tissue and throwing it in the bin. Condoms come in a variety of sizes, textures and thicknesses. For maximum protection and pleasure from your condom, make sure you check out our guide to condoms so you can choose the right one for you.
We've talked about the male condom, and now we're going to talk about the female condom, which is a tube or pouch of thin polyurethane with a flexible ring at each end, and one end is sealed and the other end is open. So the female condom is inserted into the vagina to protect against pregnancy and the transmission of STIs. So the flexible ring at the closed end is squeezed in half and then inserted into the vagina and moved up against the cervix. And the internal ring is what's responsible for actually holding the condom in place. And then the open ring is positioned externally around the vaginal opening. And so this can also be used anally to protect against STIs. And the condom needs to be lubricated, and it comes with extra lubricant on the side usually to help with insertion of the penis. And then to remove, you just twist the external ring to trap the semen inside, and then you gently pull down, but it's important that you don't stand up first. And so this can be inserted up to 8 hours before intercourse. You never want to use it with a male condom because they just rub against each other and will cause tearing of the condom. It provides slightly more protection than male condoms because it covers more area and it's not damaged by oil-based lubricants. But there are more mistakes in use with the female condom than the male condom, so it's a little bit risky in terms of making sure that you're using it right. The male condom is a little bit easier, but when they're used correctly, they're just as effective, if not more effective. Okay, check out this video clip on the female condom.
Make FC2, the only FDA-approved and WHO-approved female condom, a part of your everyday intimacy to keep your sex life happy and healthy. Made of nitrile, which warms to your body temperature and feels natural, the FC2 is a latex-free, non-hormonal contraceptive. The FC2 is a safe option for protection against unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV, which may enhance the pleasure potential for both of you. The FC2 is easy to use with practice and can be placed before intimacy begins. Before use, check the expiration date printed on the seam of each condom package. Then, massage the package between your hands, spreading the silicone-based lubricant. Carefully open the package by tearing down from the notch on the top. The inner ring of the FC2 is at the closed end of the female condom. To place the FC2, hold the inner ring, squeezing it with your thumb and middle finger so it becomes long and narrow. Get into a comfortable position. Push the inner ring all the way back behind the pubic bone over the cervix. Once placed, the FC2 should feel comfortable. It should not hurt or cause discomfort. If it does, remove the condom and start over with a new condom. When initiating intercourse, hold the outer ring of the FC2 in place to prevent it from sliding inside the vagina. After intercourse and before standing up, remove the condom by twisting the outer ring once, then pull out the condom and throw it away.
The withdrawal method is removing the penis from the vagina just prior to ejaculation. It's usually unreliable. It's also called coitus interruptus or the pulling out method. It doesn't provide any protection from STIs, and despite being rejected for decades as effective, if done absolutely perfectly, it can be fairly effective in preventing pregnancy. The failure rate in preventing pregnancy is 22%. So pre-ejaculate does not usually contain sperm despite previous reports. However, it can if there is sperm left over in the man's penis from a previous ejaculation. So the way that the pull-out method works, or the withdrawal method works, is that the man must remove his penis before ejaculating, and the man must make sure that the semen is not anywhere near the vaginal opening. So check out this clip on the withdrawal method.
Well, hi babes. Truth. Pulling out can be a very effective form of birth control if it's done properly. Also truth, the vast majority of people do not do the pull-out method properly. Humans, we're just flawed creatures. Well, with the exception of Beyonce and baby Leo. For a couple that uses the pull-out method correctly every single time, 4 in 100 become pregnant within a year. That means with perfect execution of the pull-out method, it's 96% effective. That's a better success rate than pretty much anything I've attempted in my life. Even though it has the potential to be 96% effective, it is actually, in the real world, only about 73% effective. Slightly more than 1 in 4 couples who use this method become pregnant. That's a lot of oopsies. You may be asking yourself, how the does someone mess up the pull-out method? The first common mistake is not properly handling the pre-cum. So in preparation for ejaculation, a fluid called pre-ejaculate or pre-cum is released by the Cowper's glands. Pre-cum does 2 things. It neutralizes the urethra so that the sperm can survive, and it also slicks things up so that it's easy for the semen to go through. For most people, their pre-cum does not contain any sperm. That's right! The vast majority of people do not have sperm in their pre-cum! This isn't even a megaphone. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. What can happen though is the pre-cum can pick up sperm that's already chilling out in the urethra from a previous ejaculation. An easy solution to this that's not foolproof but definitely helps is to go pee before you have sex. The second mistake, however, is the real downfall. This is how people get pregnant. A lot of folks, they're like, yeah, I got this, no big deal, I'll just pull it out. But then the moment comes where you're getting toward orgasm and it's like, fuck, she did it. And oopsie. Accidents are very common. It's like my magical multiple orgasms video. You need practice, you need to be able to understand your body, and you have to have a lot of self-control to be able to execute the pull-out method properly. Third mistake is still managing to get ejaculate near the vagina even though you've pulled out. So somewhere around the vulva, the outside part, you can still get pregnant this way. The sperm just like, whoop, they're on a mission and they will find their way. So, who is a good candidate for the pull-out method? Monogamous couples who have been tested for STDs together. Even though the pull-out method can help to lower the odds of getting pregnant, it does not protect you against sexually transmitted infections. Couples that know each other's bodies well, have experience with each other, and have a good amount of self-control. If you and your partner decide that this is a good method for you, be sure to practice with the condom on a few times to make sure you got the timing down right. Couples that have been together for a while and trust each other. Pulling out requires a lot of trust. You are relinquishing your birth control to your partner. If you don't quite feel comfortable with it, a partner who loves and respects you will gladly wear a condom so that you have peace of mind and can enjoy yourself. Not so good candidates for the pull-out method would be folks who are a little bit less experienced sexually, maybe they've only been sexually active for a few years. New couples, couples who haven't been tested together. Also, anyone who uses "don't worry, I'll pull out" as an excuse not to wear a condom. So if you find yourself thinking right now, hey, this might actually be a good method for my partner and I, you can make it more effective by combining it with condoms. You can actually make the pull-out method more effective by using it with any other method of birth control. It'll make it that much stronger. In the event that an accident does happen, emergency contraception is a good backup. Take it as soon as possible. Okay, now you know the gospel truth about pulling out. The short version is don't rely on it unless you know what you're doing. If you're gonna have unprotected sex anyway, it's better than nothing. Any further questions, you can send me a tweet at GoGreen18. I know I'm confusing and sometimes leave things out, so feel free to send me any thingies that you think of there. Okay, have fun, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Oral contraceptives, also known as birth control pills, are tablets containing female hormones that are ingested every day. They constitute the most popular reversible contraceptive method used by women in the United States. The first birth control pill became available over 50 years ago. However, oral contraceptives, they don't prevent STIs, so you'd have to use them in combination with a condom. And the failure rate of oral contraception is 0.3%. But if you use them incorrectly, like if you miss a day on accident or you don't take them at the same time every day, then the failure rate is actually 9%. So as I had just mentioned, you must take them every day at the same time to maintain the appropriate hormone levels. And it does take 5 to 7 days after starting birth control to be protected from conception. And so there's two main types of birth control pills. There's the combination pills, and then there are the progestin-only pills, which are often referred to as mini pills. So the combination pills are an oral contraceptive that contains a combination of estrogen and progestin. And that combination prevents the woman from ovulating. So combination pills are low-dose pills that reduce the likelihood of spotting between periods, of getting headaches, and of breast tenderness, all symptoms common of PMS. And the combination pills are labeled to help you keep track. You take them for 21 days, and then you stop taking them for 7 days, or you take placeholder pills that actually have no hormones. And then that's when the period comes, is when you're taking the placeholder pills or not taking the pills at all. And then the mini pill is an oral contraceptive containing progestin only, and this avoids the negative side effects that are sometimes caused by estrogen. They are as effective as combination pills, and they do the same thing in that they prevent ovulation, and they actually thicken the cervical mucus to create a barrier against sperm. And if an egg then is fertilized, it wouldn't implant because of the thickness of that cervical mucus. Let's watch a quick clip on the combination pill and the progestin-only pill.
A series of events called the menstrual cycle happens about once every month to prepare a woman's body for pregnancy. Changing levels of natural chemicals in the bloodstream, called hormones, control these events. The reproductive organs affected by these hormones include the vagina, cervix, uterus, fallopian tubes, and ovaries. The ovaries produce two main hormones called estrogen and progesterone. As the level of estrogen begins to rise, it causes the normally thick mucus inside the cervix to thin out. Estrogen also triggers other hormones to cause one of the ovaries to release an egg. This process is called ovulation. If a woman has sex during this time, a man's reproductive cells, called sperm, can pass through the thinner mucus to fertilize an egg. In the uterus, estrogen causes the lining to thicken, which prepares it to receive a fertilized egg. Rising progesterone levels cause glands in the lining to release fluid that feeds the fertilized egg. Progesterone also causes the thinned-out mucus in the cervix to become thick again, which prevents sperm from passing through. If an egg hasn't been fertilized, the levels of both estrogen and progesterone begin to fall. This drop in hormone levels causes menstruation, a process where the uterus sheds its inner tissue lining and blood through the vagina. Birth control pills are medications that a woman takes every day to prevent pregnancy. The most common and effective type of birth control pill is a combination pill. It contains both estrogen and progestin, which is a man-made hormone similar to progesterone. The estrogen and progestin from the pill maintain constant levels of these hormones in the body. These levels prevent the body from releasing similar hormones that cause ovulation. Without ovulation, there is no egg available for fertilization, so a woman can't get pregnant. Progestin also prevents pregnancy by keeping the mucus in the cervix thick enough so sperm can't get through it. A third effect of progestin on pregnancy involves its influence on the lining of the uterus. In contrast to natural progesterone, progestin is slightly different chemically. Over time, it makes the uterine lining thinner instead of thicker. As a result, if fertilization of an egg does take place, the lining may be too thin for it to stay in the uterus, so it passes out of the body with the next menstrual period. Combination pills usually come in 28-day packs. Depending on the brand of pill, the first 21 to 24 pills are active pills because they contain hormones. The last 4 to 7 pills are inactive or reminder pills that don't contain any hormones. Inactive pills allow the hormone levels in the body to drop so that bleeding during the menstrual cycle can occur. Even though the inactive pills don't contain any hormones, the woman remains protected against pregnancy during this time. Inactive pills are also called reminder pills because they keep a woman in the habit of taking a birth control pill every day. Progestin-only pills, or mini pills, only contain progestin. Like the combination pill, the progestin in the progestin-only pills prevents pregnancy by preventing ovulation, thickening cervical mucus, and thinning out the lining of the uterus. Women may choose progestin-only pills if they can't tolerate the estrogen in combination pills due to side effects or other medical reasons. All progestin-only pills are active. Menstrual bleeding with progestin-only pills may occur once every month, on and off throughout the month, or there may be no bleeding at all. For the highest protection against pregnancy, it is important to take progestin-only pills at the same time every day. Both combination and progestin-only birth control pills are about 99% effective at preventing pregnancy if used correctly. This means about 1 out of 100 women will become pregnant each year if they use them correctly every day. However, they are only about 92% effective with typical use, which means about 8 out of 100 women will become pregnant each year if they don't always remember to take them every day.
There are also extended dosage contraceptive pills that provide hormones for 84 days and then 7 days of no pills or those placebos, and this is when the period comes. So this causes women to only get their periods 4 times a year instead of the usual 13. One type of extended dosage contraceptive pill is called Seasonique, and with that type, the placebos contain low dosages of estrogen, which actually reduces that period to only 4 days. And then there's another type called Librel that came on the market in 2007, and it's approved by the FDA. And it provides hormones for 365 days, which intentionally creates amenorrhea, or as we talked about before, the cessation of a woman's period. In hunter-gatherer days, women didn't have as many periods, which leads experts to believe that preventing menstruation may actually be a good thing for women or natural. And stopping periods altogether eliminates negative side effects like heavy bleeding, of course, pain, migraines, endometriosis, emotional mood swings, and bloating. And these extended dosage pills have the same exact health risks as the standard 28-day pills. The most common side effects are spotting and breakthrough bleeding. Some women don't like taking hormones, and there is some concern about how those hormones may affect them. So let's watch a clip on how birth control pills affect the brain, if they do at all.
Ladies, have you ever felt tired, easily frustrated, and prone to feeling low? Maybe it's just your birth control. Hey Hey everyone, Julia here for D-News. The pill is over 60 years old. It was a revolution. It allowed women to take full control over their reproductive health. And since then, it's been studied a whole bunch, and we've talked about it before on the show. Check some links for those episodes down below. Some women suffer from a form of PMS so severe it affects work, family, life, etc., called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD. For some of these women, a prescription of birth control makes symptoms easier to manage. On the other hand, birth control gets a bad rap. Many women report no adverse side effects. Some women say the pill makes them more moody and depressed. So who is right? Well, a recent study published in the Journal of Human Brain Mapping found that oral birth control has a strange way of affecting a woman's brain. Neuroscientists from UCLA compared some women who take oral contraceptives, or OC, and some naturally cycling women who don't. They found that women who take OC had lower cortical thickness in the lateral orbitofrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. The researchers say that these parts of the brain are related to processing rewards and other things like incoming stimuli. But more research is needed to see if these changes are related to a change in behavior. Although, the lead author of that study told the Huffington Post that those changes in the brain might be responsible for some of the negative feelings some women get when starting the pill, like anxiety and depression. But these results are a stark contrast to some found in a 2010 study. That study, published in the journal Brain Research, also compared women on the pill and naturally cycling women. The researchers found that some women on birth control had more gray matter in some areas of the brain responsible for emotional regulation, memory, and learning. You'd think that would make women less moody, right? So what's going on? One review published in the journal Frontiers of Neuroscience found that there are at least two groups of women who respond differently to birth control pills. Some really do seem to be more emotionally stable on the pill, while others have increased rates of depression, anxiety, fatigue, neurotic symptoms, compulsion, and anger. The researchers found that in some studies, elevated levels of estradiol, a derivative which is a major component in OC, might have antidepressant properties. But they also found that it can lower the body's production of estradiol, which might lower moods. That same review also found that progesterone, the other major component of combination OC, might elevate moods at low concentrations, but maybe lower moods at higher concentrations. It really depends on what kind of birth control you're on and what levels of hormones those pills contain. One meta-analysis published in the Journal of Affective Disorders found that for most women, oral contraceptives' effect on mood is a positive one. Yet there is a subgroup of women who might experience the opposite. So while birth control does allow women to take control over their reproductive choices, it's also a very personal decision, and it seems the effects are personal too. In fact, the pill can even affect who you fancy too. Check out this video from Trace and Amy to learn more.
The study followed 118 women who were on the birth control pill prior to getting married, then assessed using surveys how their opinions of their husbands changed once they stopped taking the pill after marriage.
So are you on the pill? Do you know anybody on the pill? Do you find it affects your mood at all? Let us know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons and keep coming back here. We've got new episodes every day of the week.
Another type of contraception is the hormonal implant. A commonly used hormonal implant is called Implanon. And a hormonal implant is a small tube containing the same hormones as the birth control pill, but it's implanted under the skin on the inside of the upper arm. So it takes just a minute to implant, and then it's effective for 3 years. You can take it out at any time. The good thing about it is that it's virtually impossible to use it incorrectly. The failure rate in the first year is only 0.05%, and the failure rate after 2 years is 0%, meaning it's 100% effective. Some of the possible negative side effects are amenorrhea, meaning you wouldn't get your period at all, or a woman wouldn't get her period at all, spotting, more frequent unpredictable periods, headaches, weight gain, acne, and vaginal infections. And people that use hormonal implants actually have a very high rate of continued use. After 2 years of using it, 84% of women continue using the implant. So let's watch a clip now on the implant that shows how it's inserted and gives us a little more information about it. also injectable hormonal contraceptives, often referred to as the shot, and these are hormones that are injected into the arm or the hip. They need to be administered by a doctor or nurse once every 3 months, and the brand that's most popular is Depo-Provera, and it's been around since the 1970s. It was approved in the United States in 1992. It works just like the pill. It can take up to a year to regain fertility after it's no longer used, though. The failure rate is 0.2%, and it begins working immediately after injection. If you can't get another shot at exactly 3 months, there actually provides a 2-week buffer where hormones continue releasing. And then some of the side effects from most common to least common are breakthrough bleeding, headaches, nervousness, decreased sex drive, breast tenderness, and depression. In one poll, only 20% of women said they had no side effects. So the side effects are pretty common. And maybe that's the reason why only 44% of women continue with the shot after 1 year. But something that a lot of women like about Depo-Provera is that it does cause periods to cease, or you no longer get your period. And then there is a newer version of Depo-Provera called the Depo Sub-Q Provera 104 injection, and it has a little bit lower dose of hormones, and the reports on that are that women are seemingly getting fewer side effects and maybe liking it a little more. So let's watch a video now on the shot.
The shot is an injection that you get in the arm. It's also called Depo or Depo-Provera. It's a birth control method that lasts for 3 months. The shot works by preventing the ovary from releasing an egg. If the egg isn't released, it's impossible for the sperm and the egg to join together. The shot also helps by thickening the mucus in the cervix so that the sperm can't get through. The shot is a good choice for patients who want something that's long-lasting, something that's highly effective and safe. It's really convenient for some patients because you come into the office, you get the injection, you're set for 3 whole months. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to carry anything around. You don't have to take a pill every day. It's also really private for patients for that very reason. Nobody knows that you have it. Many women get the shot and don't have any side effects or problems at all. One of the most common side effects of the shot is irregular bleeding. It's not unusual for women to spot irregularly for the first 6 to 12 months when they're on the shot. After approximately a year, about 50% of the women that get the shot actually stop having their periods altogether, which actually a lot of women like. Because the shot is long-lasting, it can take a while to get pregnant after having your last shot. So it's definitely something that you want to consider. If you're worried about being able to afford the shot, you should see if you're eligible for a program at Planned Parenthood, which will give you low to no cost birth control and other reproductive health care. To see if you're eligible, visit ppmns.org.
There is also the contraceptive patch and ring. So the contraceptive patch is a thick stick-on patch that delivers a precise dose of 2 hormones into a woman's body through the skin, which prevents ovulation. And the release of the hormone works the same way as the pill in preventing pregnancy. The patch came on the market in 2002, and it's placed on either the abdomen, the buttocks, or the upper body, front or back, but not on the breasts or on the upper arm. Each patch lasts 1 week, and you wear them for 3 weeks and not on the 4th week. So you have to replace them. So you wear like 3 a month basically, and then not on the 4th week. So you're replacing them once a week. And then on that 4th week is when the woman menstruates. And they can be worn during swimming, bathing, exercising, showering. And they have the same side effects as the pill. They contain 60% more hormones than the pill though. And so this causes an increased risk of blood clots, stroke, and heart attacks. Although it's rare, the numbers are 3 in 10,000 women using the patch have heart attacks. And then there is the contraceptive ring, which is a colorless, flexible, transparent silicone ring that's about 2 inches in diameter, and it is inserted into the vagina. It releases a continuous low dose of estrogen and progestin-like hormones into the bloodstream. The NuvaRing was released in 2002 and is very popular. It gets inserted like a female condom. It lasts 3 weeks and then it's removed for 1 week, which is when the women menstruate. The failure rate is only 0.3%, and usually men report that they can't feel it during intercourse, and the woman reports she can't feel it either. But it can be taken out for 3 hours if you really don't want it in during intercourse, and then reinserted after the 3 hours. It takes a week to start working from the time it's inserted, and it actually requires less hormones because of its location in the vagina. And it has the same side effects as the pill, and in addition to those side effects, some women experience vaginal irritation and inflammation. So let's watch a video clip on the ring.
What is NuvaRing? NuvaRing is a simply unique, once-monthly birth control option that you administer vaginally. It's 99% effective, just like the pill, releases a low dose of hormones, and provides reliable cycle control. Once monthly dosing gives you less to remember and less to forget. It's a convenient option for a busy lifestyle. Because women are busier than ever these days, and a daily pill regimen simply may not fit into your schedules. How do you use NuvaRing? NuvaRing is easy to insert and remove yourself and takes just a minute. Just pinch the ring and gently push it up into your vagina. The exact position of NuvaRing has no bearing on its effectiveness. Once NuvaRing is in place in the vagina for 3 weeks, it can be easily removed by you. Just hook your finger through the ring and gently pull it out. Then take a 1-week break for your period and insert a new ring. It's that simple. Wouldn't it be nice if everything were that easy? You'll be glad to know that NuvaRing is 99% effective at preventing pregnancy, just like the pill. Over 97% of women rarely or never had a problem inserting or removing NuvaRing. Most women don't feel it in the vagina, and during intercourse, most couples don't mind it. And NuvaRing can even be removed for up to 3 hours, and during intercourse. In fact, 9 out of 10 women who use NuvaRing would recommend it to others. See for yourself why so many women are finally satisfied with their contraceptive.
Emergency contraceptive pills are hormonal contraceptives that help prevent pregnancy after an unprotected act of intercourse. These are also known as the morning after pill. Despite popular belief, they are not a form of abortion. ECPs prevent conception. They're approximately 75% effective, and most of them need to be taken within 72 hours of unprotected sex. There are a couple brands that can be taken up to 5 days after. They are available at pharmacies. They work like pills, but they have a higher dosage of hormones. And then some of the common side effects are nausea, vomiting, headache, and breast tenderness. These should not be used in place of birth control because of the high dosage of hormones. It's not something that you would want to take like on a consistent basis. So you would want to have a birth control system in place. However, if you forget birth control or you forget contraception, then you have ECPs as an alternate or a backup. And there are lots of reasons that people use ECPs, like maybe a couple had unprotected intercourse, a condom broke or slipped off, a man forgot to withdraw before ejaculation, a diaphragm may have slipped out of place, a woman may have missed too many birth control pills, a woman may have been raped, a woman thinks she may have been a victim of the date rape drug, or the woman was exposed to a toxin that could hurt a new fetus. So, some people think that emergency contraceptive pills are like a form of abortion. So let's watch a video now that explains the science behind how they work.
Contraception. With a variety of methods available, many people are able to avoid unintended pregnancies. But what happens when things don't go quite as planned? Thanks to modern science, a second chance is possible. So how does emergency contraception, or Plan B, work? And what exactly is happening inside the female body? During the female menstrual cycle, many hormones are released, beginning a chain reaction. The pituitary gland in the brain releases FSH, which stimulates the growth of follicles and a premature egg in the ovaries. These follicles then release estrogen, which helps prepare the uterus lining and triggers the brain to release luteinizing hormone, or LH. LH then triggers ovulation, in which the egg is released into the fallopian tubes, where it will spend around 12 to 24 hours waiting to be fertilized. If the egg isn't fertilized in this time, it begins to dissolve and is shed away with the uterine lining during menstruation. Though this window of opportunity is brief, it's increased by the fact that sperm can live for up to 5 days. So the keen sperm from days ago show up early to the show, anxiously awaiting ovulation. Birth control pills taken on a regular basis modify these hormone levels. By increasing progestin levels, the body thinks it's already released an egg or already pregnant. It effectively decreases FSH and LH and the cycle halts. But in the case of emergency contraception, which is only taken if regular contraception methods fail, a few different mechanisms take place. The most important thing to understand is that fertilization doesn't happen immediately or even within hours after intercourse. Instead, the sperm must undergo a few biological changes in the fallopian tube first, which takes time. This is why emergency contraception is still possible the morning after, and can actually work up to 5 days after intercourse. If taken during the first half of the menstrual cycle, emergency contraception works specifically to prevent ovulation. This way, the egg is not released even though it may be ready, and the available sperm cannot fertilize it. In cases where it's too late to inhibit ovulation, emergency contraception is thought to also thicken cervical mucus, trapping sperm. As well, it may directly inhibit fertilization between sperm and egg. Clinical studies show that emergency contraception prevents pregnancy before fertilization. No studies have shown an effect from emergency contraception if fertilization has already occurred. It does not stop implantation from happening, nor does it have any effect after implantation has occurred. In this way, it's unable to cause an abortion. And while there are some minor side effects to these drugs, such as nausea and headaches, scientific studies have demonstrated its safety in women of all ages and found that the benefits far outweigh any risks. Got a burning question you want answered? Ask it in the comments or on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe for more weekly science videos.
Okay, for lecture activity 2, I would like for you to tell me your thoughts on emergency contraceptive pills. Specifically, are they something that you would be willing to use, or something that you would encourage your partner to use, or someone you've had sex with? And under what circumstances would you encourage the use of ECPs, or would you yourself take them? So just give me a 2 to 3 sentence response on that for lecture activity 2. So barrier methods are contraceptive methods that protect against pregnancy by preventing sperm from entering the woman's reproductive tract and fertilizing the egg. They don't protect against STIs. Spermicide is one barrier method that we'll talk about here, but they can irritate vaginal tissue and actually increase the risk of contracting an STI. So the barrier method should be used in combination with condoms. And people do sometimes use the barrier method as an alternate to contraceptives that have hormones in them. So the diaphragm is the first one we're going to talk about, and it's a flexible ring of latex and silicone. Its form is like a small cup, and it's inserted into the vagina. It impedes conception by preventing sperm from getting past the cervix. And it was actually the first form of birth control for women. It was introduced by Sanger. Her husband was the one who manufactured them. And so they require a prescription because they need to be fitted by a doctor to your specific, or to the woman's specific cervix. And you have to put spermicidal cream along the circumference and in the cup before inserting it. It can be put in 6 hours before intercourse, and then you can leave it in 6 hours after intercourse, but no more than 24 hours. If intercourse occurs again within the 6 hours, then you would want to add more spermicide. And then there's the cervical cap, which is a device similar to the diaphragm that fits more snugly over the cervix, and it can be inserted 2 days before intercourse. So it provides protection for up to 48 hours without having to reapply spermicide. And the failure rate for both the diaphragm and the cervical cap is 6 to 9%. Okay, check out these video clips on the diaphragm and the cervical cap.
The diaphragm is a dome-shaped cup with a flexible rim made of latex or silicone. This barrier method is used with a spermicide cream or jelly. The diaphragm is inserted into the vagina and fits securely over the cervix. This blocks entry to the uterus, while the spermicide immobilizes wayward sperm. 2 hours or less before intercourse, squirt spermicide in the cup and spread the extra around the rim. Find a comfortable position and separate the vaginal labia. Fold the cup in half, then push the device back into the vagina. The front rim should be wedged behind the pubic bone, and the cup should be covering the cervix entirely. Leave a diaphragm in place for 6 hours after intercourse. If properly cared for, a diaphragm can often be used for about 2 years, but because changes, such as weight gain, can alter the fit of the diaphragm, bring your device with you to every OB/GYN appointment.
A woman's reproductive system includes the vagina, cervix, uterus, fallopian tubes, and ovaries. During vaginal sex between a man and a woman, semen passes out of the man's penis into the woman's vagina in a process called ejaculation. Semen contains tens of millions of sperm. From the vagina, sperm can pass through the cervix, uterus, and fallopian tubes to fertilize an egg from the woman's body. Fertilization of the egg marks the beginning of human development. A cervical cap is a form of birth control or contraception. It's a temporary and reusable device women can use to prevent pregnancy. Made of a flexible rubber, the cervical cap is shaped like a sailor's hat. It has a dome with a removal strap on top of it. The brim surrounding the dome has a short side and a long side. A cervical cap should be used with a substance that kills sperm, called spermicide, to increase its effectiveness. A woman puts the cervical cap in her vagina before having sex to prevent pregnancy. The dome of the cervical cap covers the cervix, which prevents the sperm in the man's semen from entering the uterus. The spermicide applied to the cap kills the sperm that come into contact with it. There are a few things to remember before using a cervical cap. Do not use the cervical cap if you have given birth within 8 to 10 weeks or had a miscarriage or abortion within 6 weeks. It is easier to become pregnant using a cervical cap during these times because the cervix is larger.
There's also the contraceptive sponge as a barrier method, and this is a porous contraceptive device that releases spermicide when inserted into the vagina. It's sold without a prescription, so basically you moisten the sponge with water and then insert it into the vagina, and it provides protection for 24 hours so that the woman can have sex multiple times. but it must be left in 6 hours after the last time that the woman has sex. And the failure rate for the sponge is 6 to 9%. So let's watch a video now on the sponge.
Happy New Year, everybody! To kick off your 2013, I've got a throwback birth control for you, as you might be able to tell by this 80s-esque looking box. This is the sponge. The sponge went off the market for a little while, but now it's back. So basically, it's a sponge. To use it, you just wet it down with a little bit of water, get it nice and sudsy. Fold it, boop, put it in the vagina, boop, and you're ready to go. After you have sex, you leave it in there for 6 more hours, and then you can pull it out.
So this is the Today Sponge. The Today Sponge may or may not be available where you shop because it was off the market for a little while and there's talk of it coming back. So it has some spermicide embedded in it and you squeeze it, put it up high in the vagina and it sits up against your cervix and it acts as a barrier and it kills sperm.
Okay, because it has the spermicide in it.
Yeah. The beauty of the Today Sponge is you can put it in before you go out on your date and you leave it in there for up to 24 hours.
How effective are these types of methods when used with spermicide?
These methods with spermicide are about 2.5-star methods.
During the video today, Amy was like, sniff it.
Yeah,
like, it smells
Lacey
weird.
thought it was crazy and I was like, no, it smells really weird. And it did.
Yeah. But hey, maybe it works for some people. Like we were talking about people who can't use hormonal methods.
Or who have a
don't
latex
necessarily-
allergy.
So you obviously did not like that method.
No, I did not. And when I used it, I found it to be messy.
You can put it in beforehand, right? Isn't that what Regan was saying?
She said up to 24 hours before, yeah.
You don't want to put that in 24 hours.
She said you could like go on your date with it and stuff.
Have the sponge sloshing around up there for a few hours.
No.
Did it have any redeeming qualities in your experience?
You didn't have to really think about it.
Yeah, it's convenient, it's there. The sponge can be purchased over the counter, so you can find it at like a drugstore. This box of 3 cost me $15. Some places it's cheaper, some places it's a little more. And each of the sponges lasts 24 hours. If you have any questions about the sponge, you can leave them in the comments below and we'll be sure to answer those for you. And on the next episode of Birth Control Basics, we'll be talking about the intrauterine contraceptive, otherwise known as the IUC or the IUD. Throw a click in this general direction if you'd like to check it out, and I will see you next time.
All right, the last barrier method we're going to talk about, which we've actually mentioned several times, is spermicide. And this is any substance containing a chemical. Most commonly, that chemical is non-oxynol 9. But it's any substance containing a chemical that kills sperm cells, thereby preventing them from fertilizing an egg. And so spermicides can come in the form of foam, cream, film, tablets, and suppositories. They must be inserted within 1 hour before intercourse. Some forms require time for them to dissolve and activate, and they must be inserted deep enough to reach the cervix, and then they should be left in 6 hours after intercourse to kill off any other sperm. They're not effective on their own, and they should always be used with some other type of contraception, like a condom or a diaphragm or a cervical cap. So let's watch a video now on spermicide.
So here's the deal about spermicide. It's easy to get, has few side effects, is relatively cheap, and is often used to make other methods more effective. Spermicide is sold as a foam, gel, film, suppository, or cream. All of the forms of spermicide work the same way. They go inside of the vagina shortly before sex and stop sperm from moving. If the sperm can't move, then it can't join with the egg to cause pregnancy. Spermicide is used for a lot of reasons. It doesn't affect your hormones, you don't need a prescription from your healthcare provider, and it's relatively cheap and easy to get a hold of. Just head over to your local drugstore or supermarket. How well does it work? When used alone, spermicide is not as effective as some other methods. About 15 out of 100 women who use spermicide perfectly will get pregnant each year. That goes up to about 29 out of 100 women who don't always use it right. You can make spermicide more effective if you combine it with another form of birth control. And although spermicides are safe with very few side effects, they do not protect against sexually transmitted infections. So using a condom along with spermicide is always a good idea. If you're interested in learning more about this method, check out the info on PlannedParenthood.org.
Okay, so another method of contraception is fertility awareness, and it's based on ovulation prediction and the viability of sperm. So intercourse is timed to avoid fertile days, or a barrier method can be used during those days when a woman is fertile. So a woman is fertile for 1 day, technically. This is when the egg is released and then stays in the fallopian tube for 12 to 24 hours. However, sperm can live in the fallopian tubes for 3 to 7 days, which means that there are approximately 8 days a month when a woman can become pregnant. So in theory, if a woman knows when she will ovulate, then she can prevent the pregnancy by abstaining from sex for 7 days before and 1 day after ovulation. However, there are a small number of women who ovulate like soon after menstruation. So everyone's cycle is a little different. This is the only method of contraception that's approved by the Catholic Church, and the failure rate is between 12 and 20%. Okay, so the first method of fertility awareness we're going to talk about is the standard days method, and it is a fertility awareness technique for tracking fertile and infertile days during a woman's menstrual cycle. And so a lot of women that use this method have cycle beads that they can use to keep track of their cycle. 80% of women have what are considered quote-unquote normal cycles, which means they ovulate between day 11 and 18 of their cycle. So on this method, those are considered the fertile days, and women using this method would then abstain from sex or use barrier methods during those fertile days, so between day 11 and 18. However, not all women have quote-unquote normal cycles or ovulate between days 11 and 18, so it doesn't work for everyone. But alternatively, there's the 2-day method. And this is a fertility awareness technique that relies on careful observation of secretions from the cervix to predict ovulation. So what happens is cervical mucus begins to liquefy and flow during ovulation. It thins out in its viscosity to allow sperm to pass through. But most of the month, the mucus is pretty minimal and it's very sticky. And so what a woman can do is wipe the vaginal opening or insert her finger into her vagina to check the mucus. And if it is thick and sticky, then the woman's not ovulating. If it's white and creamy, then the ovulation is approaching. And if it is slippery and stretchy like egg whites, then ovulation is occurring. So when the mucus is slippery and stretchy and clear for 2 days, the woman should not have sex or use condoms. There's also the symptothermal method, which is a method based on monitoring cervical secretions and also internal body temperature when you wake up in the morning. So what you need is a special highly accurate thermometer. And what happens is there's a slight drop in your body temperature the day before ovulation occurs. And then the next day, the temperature should rise between 0.4 and 0.8 degrees. And this indicates that ovulation is occurring. And then it should stay that temperature until the woman gets her period. There's also ovulation predictor kits, and they're like a home pregnancy test, but instead of predicting pregnancy, they predict ovulation. You can also get them in saliva testing kits, and then they also sell computerized electronic monitoring devices to know when you're going to ovulate. Okay, something that's gaining increasing popularity are intrauterine devices, or IUDs. And these are a small plastic device in the shape of a T that is inserted by a doctor into the uterus through the cervix via the vagina. And it then remains in place for 1 to 10 years, during which time pregnancy is effectively prevented. The failure rate is less than 1%, and there are very few side effects. Some side effects include spotting and heavy periods. And there's different types of them. There are some that contain copper, and copper actually repels sperm, so those ones can last up to 10 years. And then there are other IUDs that contain progesterone-like hormones and work like the pills, and like the birth control pill, and those ones last up to 5 years. They can be removed at any time, and once they're removed, fertility returns. Very small number of women experience spontaneous expulsion of the IUD, meaning it falls out, and then it has to be reinserted. But like I said, it's becoming a very popular method and is recommended by a lot of doctors and gynecologists. So let's watch a video on IUDs and their increasing popularity.
IUDs are one of the safest, most effective forms of birth control out there. So why aren't more people using them? Hey guys, Tara here for D-News, and it's always a fun day when I get to talk about something I truly, firmly believe in. Today, that thing is the IUD. IUD stands for intrauterine device, and it's a birth control method that's been around since the 1960s. It's currently the most popular form of contraception in China and many other countries around the world, but for some reason it hasn't really caught on here in America. That may soon change though, as the American Academy of Pediatrics just labeled the IUD and other implant contraceptives the #1 choice for contraceptive use in teens. So what makes the IUD so great? And why is almost nobody using them in the Western world? Well, let's start with the basics. Here in the US, there are two different kinds of IUDs. There's the copper and then there's the hormonal. Both of them look like little T-shaped devices that basically get inserted into your uterus. Copper IUDs work like a spermicide. They release copper ions into your system which damage incoming sperm, preventing them from joining with an egg. Hormonal IUDs, on the other hand, release very small amounts of progestin into your system, which thickens your cervical mucus to the point where sperm cannot penetrate it. In some women, they can actually inhibit ovulation, which significantly decreases both the frequency and duration of your periods. Some women stop menstruating almost entirely, unlike copper IUDs, which can actually increase menstrual bleeding. Still, a lot of women prefer the copper ones because they don't have hormones in them and because they last 10 years, unlike hormonal IUDs, which only last 3 to 5 years. That's actually part of the reason doctors recommend them. You implant it once and then you do not have to worry about it for several years. So there's basically no room for human error, which is great, especially with teens who can be quite forgetful. Another reason doctors like them is that they're incredibly effective. A 2012 study labeled them the most effective form of birth control out there, and 20 times more effective than the pill or the patch. But if they're really so great, then why aren't more people using them? Well, there's a few different reasons for that. One is that a lot of women simply don't know about them, whereas everyone's heard of the pill. But there are also a lot of misconceptions surrounding IUDs. A common one is that they're dangerous, and that stems from a particular brand in the 1970s called the Dalcon Shield that ended up being recalled after it was linked to a number of deaths from septic miscarriages. Turns out those were due to a faulty design, and today's devices have never been linked to anything like that. That said, there is evidence that women with IUDs who contract STDs, and in particular chlamydia, are at increased risk for pelvic inflammatory disease, which can lead to infertility. That's why all doctors are required to order thorough STD screenings before using them, and many won't even consider giving IUDs to women who aren't in monogamous relationships. Some doctors also don't want to give them to women who haven't had children because they're afraid of being sued by women who mistakenly believe their infertility was caused by an IUD when in fact they were infertile all along. So even though studies show that the risk of an IUD causing infertility is almost non-existent, some doctors just prefer to play it safe. Still, it's kind of tough to argue with something that A, lasts several years, B, saves you thousands of dollars in the long run, C, is more effective than any other birth control out there, and D, is virtually worry-free. At the risk of giving too much information here, all I will say is that I have one and I will never, ever use anything else. It is awesome. Enough about me though. What do you guys think? Would you get an IUD? And if you already have one, what do you think of it? Let us know your answers in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.
Okay, so another option is sterilization, and this is defined as any surgical alteration that prevents the emission of sperm or eggs. It's also referred to as voluntary surgical contraception. So there is female sterilization, which is called a tubal ligation, and this is a permanent method of contraception that involves tying, cutting, clipping, or otherwise blocking the fallopian tubes to prevent the passage of an egg or an ovum. And there are 700,000 of these performed annually. It involves a laparoscopy, which is a surgical procedure used in which a tube with a tiny camera and light is inserted through a small incision in the abdomen. During this tubal ligation, a mild anesthesia is used, and the procedure takes about 30 minutes. Generally, women can resume normal activities within just a few days. And then male sterilization involves a vasectomy, which is cutting and tying off or sealing each vas deferens so that sperm produced by the testicles can no longer mix with semen in the ejaculate. And there are 500,000 of these performed annually. They're usually done by men in the 30s and 40s that are in stable long-term relationships and have at least one child. And so the way they are done is that an incision is created in the testicles to access the vas deferens, and then that is cauterized or tied. And after surgery, ejaculation does still occur. Ejaculate comes from the prostatic fluid and the seminal vesicles, not the vas deferens. And so ejaculate doesn't have sperm in it at this point, so sometimes they refer to this as shooting blanks. You might have heard that term. And both methods are usually permanent, but reversal is becoming more common and successful. However, it's pretty expensive and complicated. Pregnancy rates after reversal for men that get their vasectomy reversed is anywhere from 30 to 60%, and for females anywhere from 35 to 88%. So success is not guaranteed. Okay, so let's check out these video clips on tubal ligation and vasectomy.
A tubal ligation procedure is a permanent method of birth control, where the surgeon cuts or seals off the fallopian tubes in order to prevent pregnancy. A woman's reproductive system includes the vagina, the canal where sperm are deposited and babies emerge during delivery, uterus, the pear-shaped organ where a fertilized egg grows into a baby, fallopian tubes, two ducts that transport eggs from the ovaries to the uterus and where sperm usually fertilize eggs, and ovaries, two glands that produce and release eggs. During sexual intercourse, sperm from the male are introduced into the vagina. They travel through a channel called the cervix and into the uterus. The sperm then move into the fallopian tubes, where they can meet and fertilize eggs that have been released from the ovaries. Pregnancy begins with a fertilized egg. If you don't want to become pregnant, you may choose a birth control method from one of several categories: abstinence, contraception, or sterilization to permanently avoid pregnancy by having a medical procedure. Tubal ligation is one form of sterilization. Before the procedure begins, an intravenous line will be started, and you will be offered medication to help you relax. Local anesthesia will be applied to numb the area of the operation, and you will remain awake for its duration. In some cases, general or spinal anesthesia may be used instead. If you are having a laparoscopic tubal ligation, your doctor will begin by making a tiny incision near your belly button and another just above your pubic bone. Your doctor will then inject carbon dioxide, a harmless gas, through a tube inserted into the upper incision. The carbon dioxide inflates your abdominal cavity, allowing your doctor to clearly see and work around your internal organs. Next, your doctor will introduce a lighted instrument called a laparoscope through one of the incisions. The laparoscope projects images of the structures inside your abdomen onto a monitor. Through the other incision, your doctor will pass surgical instruments to grasp your fallopian tubes and close them off using the cutting and tying, blocking, or sealing technique. At the end of the procedure, your doctor will allow the carbon dioxide to escape and close the incisions with dissolving stitches. If you are having a mini laparotomy tubal ligation, your doctor will make a small incision just above your pubic bone. He or she will grasp the fallopian tubes with forceps and close them off using one of several techniques. At the end of the procedure, the incision will be closed with stitches. This method is often used just after childbirth. If you're having a laparotomy, your doctor will make a 2 to 5 inch incision in your lower abdomen. He or she will locate the fallopian tubes and close them off using one of several techniques. At the end of the procedure, the incision will be closed with stitches. Immediately afterward, you will be taken to the recovery area. If you have a laparoscopic tubal ligation, you will likely go home the same day. If you have a laparotomy or a mini laparotomy after childbirth, your hospital stay may be extended slightly. A vasectomy procedure is a permanent method of birth control for men, where the surgeon cuts and seals off a section of the male reproductive tract in order to prevent sperm from exiting the man's body during ejaculation. A man's reproductive system includes the testes, 2 oval-shaped structures in which sperm, a man's reproductive cells, are produced. Leading from each testicle is the vas deferens, a tube that carries sperm to the urethra, a channel in the penis that transports urine and sperm. During ejaculation, each vas deferens propels sperm through the seminal vesicles and the prostate gland, structures that provide liquid nourishment and transport for the sperm. Now called semen, this combination of sperm and supporting fluids continues its journey through the urethra and is ejected out of the penis. During intercourse, the semen passes into a woman's reproductive system where the sperm can meet and fertilize an egg. If you don't want to impregnate a woman, you may choose a birth control method from one of several categories: abstinence to completely avoid pregnancy by not having sexual intercourse, contraception to temporarily avoid pregnancy through use of various methods during sexual intercourse, or sterilization to permanently avoid pregnancy by having a medical procedure. Vasectomy is one form of sterilization. Before the procedure begins, you will be given injections of a local anesthetic to numb the area. In a conventional vasectomy, a scalpel will be used to make a small incision on one side of your scrotum, the thin skin pouch that houses the testicles. Your physician will locate the vas deferens and lift it through the incision. At this point, you may feel a pulling sensation. The vas deferens will be cut and a small piece may be removed. Next, the newly cut ends of the vas deferens will be tied, sealed with surgical clips, or cauterized. The vas deferens will be returned to the scrotum and the incision closed with stitches. The same steps will be repeated on the other side of the scrotum. This procedure takes about 30 minutes. In the non-scalpel method, your doctor will use a special ringed instrument to hold and expose the vas deferens. From this point on, the procedure is the same as the conventional vasectomy. This method is usually associated with faster healing and fewer complications, and is just as effective as the conventional method. Immediately following either procedure, you will be asked to rest at the doctor's office for a short time. The incisions will heal in a few days, with little or no scarring. After your procedure, you will need to limit your physical activity for 1 to 2 days. You will not be able to shower for 24 hours. You will need to avoid lifting heavy objects, performing hard labor, and exercising strenuously for 5 to 7 days. You will need to avoid sexual activity for 7 days.
All right, so now you've heard about all the different methods of contraception. So for lecture activity 3, I would like for you to recommend a type of contraception to an imaginary person. So you can imagine a friend or a partner, and I'd like for you to tell me what circumstances they have going on in their life. Like, for example, are they religious? Do they have a fear of hormones? Do they have multiple partners? Are they in a committed relationship? So make up a circumstance for this person's life, their lifestyles, and then tell me what type of method you would recommend for that person with that particular lifestyle. So if you could kind of describe the person and their lifestyle, it can be real or imagined, the person and their lifestyle, in 3 sentences, and then tell me what method you would recommend to them and why in another 2 or 3 sentences. That would be perfect for lecture activity 3. Okay, that is it for this chapter. Don't forget to submit your lecture activities and complete all assignments associated with this chapter, and we'll see you for the next one. Have a good day.